Hello.
Yeah,
Mahesh.
Mahesh, please go ahead.
Uh, uh,
You can
Good
start.
evening, everyone. My patient is a 55-year-old female resident of small town near Nagpur of Madhya Pradesh, uh, near Madhya Pradesh, presented to hospital with complaints of shortness of breath, blood expectoration during cough, and decreased level of sensorium over a period of 24 hours. Clinical details was given by her husband, and he is reliable. History of presenting illness, I would go back to March 2020. At that time, patient was apparently normal. Then initially she noticed swelling of feet and easy fatigability. Swelling of feet was insidious in onset, slowly progressive, pitying in nature. There was no diurnal variation, not associated with cough, shortness of breath, decreased urine output, swelling of face, abdominal distension, fever, or joint pains, or swelling over the face or extremities, a skin rash over the face or extremities. Easy fatigability was insidious in onset, gradually progressive, not associated with any increased menstrual bleeding or blood in stools, blood in urine, or cough or breathlessness, fever, or bony pains. With this history, she went to a local doctor, general physician in her hometown, and she was told that she was found to have increased serum creatinine of about 4.5 milligrams per dl, and she was advised to get nephrology consultation. On asking leading question whether he did not remember any investigations other than serum creatinine, and at that time she was started on uh, Eltroxin tablet and telmisartan tablet. The dose he could not remember. She took telmisartan over a period of 10 days and stopped. However, she continued Eltroxin 50 micrograms in the morning. She did not visit a nephrologist for further 20 days. However, as she is not feeling better and getting her symptoms being worse, she visited a nephrologist in Nagpur, where she was found to have serum creatinine of 7.5 milligrams per dl, hemoglobin of 5.5 grams per dl, and she did not remember any other reports like urine examination, chest X-ray, or any costly investigations being done at that point of time. She was advised to get renal biopsy, and she was started on darbepoetin to increase her hemoglobin level. She refused to get renal biopsy and went back to her native place, and she received darbepoetin. However, after a few days, she noticed further worsening of swelling of feet and developed shortness of breath this time, and she again visited the same nephrologist. At that time, her serum creatinine was found to be 10 milligrams per dl, and she was advised to get admitted and explained about the need for renal biopsy. She then moved to Hyderabad for further management. She came to Asian Institute of Nephrology, and at the time of presentation, she was in gross volume overload state, oliguric, and her serum creatinine was found to be around 14 milligrams per dl. She was informed that she had hemoglobin of 6 grams per dl and protein loss and blood loss in urine. And she also had raised body temperature of about 100-degree Fahrenheit. She was then initiated on right IJV temporary non-tunneled catheter and initiated on hemodialysis for predominantly volume removal, and she was also started on Magnex 4th injection for fever. At the time of initiation, she had blood pressure of about 160 by 100 mm of Hg, and blood and urine cultures were also taken, and they subsequently showed no growth. He said that she underwent some costly investigations like ANA and ANCA, and on asking leading question, he said that they were found to be negative. She underwent 3 sessions of hemodialysis, and after that, she also underwent ultrasound guided renal biopsy, which was uneventful. She got discharged and presented after to hospital after 3 days with biopsy report and other some blood costly investigation, probably anti-GBM report. She was then
So why do you think it is anti-GBM report?
we asked the question to her
So
son.
retrospectively, you are saying after everything.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
She was then started on IV steroids and other IV medication, which was given, and she said that she was informed that she need to be continued on hemodialysis for volume overload state and decreased urine output. She went to Mancherial and she was
No,
on
was she at the time offered any other therapy which she obliged, did not oblige, anything of that sort of
on
history you
asking
could get?
on asking leading question, he say that no further therapy was offered other than that IV steroid and another IV medication.
Okay.
But she was informed that she needs to be continued on these medications for a long time, and
Okay.
she needs to be continued on dialysis.
Okay. Good.
She went to Mancherial, and she was on oral steroids at that time. Exact dose he could not remember, but however, she underwent 2 sessions of hemodialysis outside. On one day, she developed sudden onset of shortness of breath with the cough and blood in the cough at her home. And at that time, she was brought in to Asian Institute again with paramedical. And on arrival, she was having severe hemoptysis, very low blood pressure, and altered behavior. She was intubated and supported with mechanical ventilation. On asking viral studies, he said that her viral studies were negative and she did not underwent any testing for COVID-19. And she was then started on slow dialysis and medications to improve her blood pressure, probably IV medications to improve her blood pressure. Her condition rapidly improved and she was extubated on the next day. She was then started on some special dialysis, which probably a plasma exchange, which she underwent 4 times on alternate days. He does not remember any prescription or any blood product transfusion during that therapy. Her condition gradually improved. However, on 7th June, she had one more episode of shortness of breath with hemoptysis. She was continued on special dialysis therapy and taken for hemodialysis as she was in volume overload state. After dialysis, she received 500 milligrams of costly medication. On asking leading question, he said that it was rituximab, and he told that the medication was changed as she had very low blood count. The value he could not remember. So retrospectively, some medication which was being stopped because of low blood count probably, and it was not costly also, could be an cyclophosphamide which was given previously to her. 24 hours after receiving rituximab, she had abnormal movement of left hand and mild drowsiness and unable to notice people clearly. Neurologist opinion was taken and she underwent investigation like CT scan of brain, which was found to be normal, and she was started on tablet Levipil. She improved apparently, and on the time at the time when history was being taken, she was on hemodialysis and she was receiving blood transfusion, and she was planned for discharge on that day with the tunnel catheter in situ. Past
Okay.
history.
Go ahead.
Past history, there was no similar history of similar illness in the past. And personal history, she was a known hypothyroid from last 3 years. However, she was not on allopathic medication. She was receiving some Ayurvedic medication for hypothyroidism. However, that was also not compliant. And she was a non-diabetic, not hypertensive, doesn't have a history of seizure disorder, and she doesn't have a history of tuberculosis in the past. Menstrual history, she was having irregular periods for the last 1 year and she was not receiving any medications for that. Family history, she was born out of non-consanguineous marriage and she had four more siblings, and she had two kids. Both of them delivered by she gave birth by normal vaginal delivery, and it was an institutional deliveries, and she doesn't have any history suggestive of raised blood pressures, headache, or any renal disorder at the time of pregnancy. drug history presently, she was taking levothyroxine 50 microgram for 3 months, and she was taking telmisartan she took telmisartan for 10 days, and she received 2 doses of IV Solometrol and 2 doses of endoxin dose she doesn't remember, and she also received injection magnexport and meropenem. She was also started on some tablets to improve her blood, like iron multivitamin, erythropoietin, pantoprazole, and currently she is being discharged with 40 milligrams of prednisolone.
Okay. Anything else in
Okay.
the history?
Um, One more history, sir. Before March, she said that she had a history of travel all over the India, sir. And
Okay.
after the travel, immediately she, like, 2 months she was continuously on travel, sir. Like, she visited all the places, I mean pilgrimage places. And after coming home, then 10 days later, that only she developed all these symptoms,
No,
sir.
do you think any that has any relation to the present problem?
Sometimes, like infections or any environmental pollution can exacerbate diseases like good pasture disease or any autoimmune or vasculitis disorders. Like, it could be a heat, probably, sir.
That would be very difficult to digest for me. But anyway, can you summarize the history?
Summary, sir. It's a 55-year-old female, known hypothyroid for the last 3 years, and on Ayurvedic medication for the same, with recent history of travel, noticed increased swelling of feet and rapid rise in serum creatinine,
This is
which
not summarizing. This is telling the history again. When I say summary, this we have discussed time and again. You can't go back to swelling of feet. She presented with a advanced renal failure or an RPGN-like syndrome directly. Don't
okay, sir.
don't tell the history again. Yeah,
Okay, sir. She
go on.
presented with advanced renal failure, requiring hemodialysis.
Okay.
Underwent renal biopsy. Suggestive of good pasture disease, and
How do you
received.
know a good passage disease there?
Sir, she
See,
received one completing history summary. It could be she was started on cyclophosphamide and IV Solumetrol, and she said in history it was told that ANA and ANC were negative, sir, and she underwent some blood investigation, which was she did not remember any value of that, but after looking to that blood report and biopsy report only, she was started on these medications, sir. So and the history suggestive of
see,
respiratory
the
failure with
most common
hemoptysis.
problem, yeah, Mahesh, most common problem that I see in presentations by all the residents is the same thing. I don't know how different units make a summary, but to my mind, summary should be really, really brief and talking absolutely about the problem at hand. I would summarize this patient as a middle. She would be by definition not be an elderly because she's less than 50, but she's approaching elderly. A middle-aged female approaching 60 years, I would say, presented with an RPGN-like syndrome, so with a relatively subacute presentation. It's not like she had a dramatic presentation. She almost from the time of her suggestion for the diagnosis of renal failure to the dialysis was around 1 month.
Yes,
So
sir.
subacute presentation, she had an RPGN-like syndrome, which was later complicated by pulmonary hemorrhage as well. And she received cytotoxic therapy, probably steroids and endoxon as
Cyclophosphamide.
well. Now rituximab is controversial. Okay, it is given, but if you give everything away in your history only, it is very difficult for the examiner to really assess whether you understand the clinical scenario properly. So this is how I would summarize the case. Now, the first
Okay,
thing
sir.
that comes to anybody's mind with such a history, even if you include rituximab in your history, do you think it is ANCA-associated vasculitis or do you put anti-GBM? I
Anka,
don't
I would
even,
suggest Anka, sir,
yeah.
because of,
But before that, see, summary is this.
okay,
Middle-aged to
sir.
elderly female, RPGN-like syndrome, now presented with a which was further complicated by the pulmonary hemorrhage. So it's a pulmonary renal syndrome.
Pulmonary renal syndrome.
Received
Yes, sir.
cytotoxic chemotherapy, is still dialysis dependent. That is the summary.
Okay,
Not
sir.
talking about edema, not talking about drugs in detail, not talking about medications and all is very, very important. Summary should be crisp and to the point. I've
Okay,
told
sir.
multiple times before, even when you talk about diseases like lupus, a multi-system disease presenting with these problems. Like
Okay,
that
sir.
you have to summarize, or you cannot keep on explaining the history again, number one. Number two, if you offer the differential diagnosis, now tell me your diagnosis at the end of this history.
Sir, rapidly progressive renal failure, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, oliguric and dialysis requiring acute kidney injury, status post-renal biopsy, with acute respiratory failure, type 1 respiratory failure with shock, requiring mechanical ventilator support, status post 5 sessions of plasmapheresis, status post two dose of cyclophosphamide and IV methylprednisolone. Query drug induced leukopenia, sir. With his status post 1 dose of rituximab, complex partial seizures and hypothyroid, sir. And coming to diagnosis, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, possibility of ANCA-associated vasculitis or Goodpasture disease is possible.
Okay, we'll come to that. Now, again, one more thing is, say different people take it in different ways, but I would prefer always that the diagnosis is in the chronological order and then comes the, see, when you're writing a death summary, you write in the reverse chronology, the immediate cause of death, the antecedent
Yes,
causes,
sir.
and go on.
Yes, sir.
When you're writing a diagnosis, I would put hypothyroidism first in the
Okay, sir.
background and then an RPR, RPGN. Yeah,
Okay,
why
sir.
did you ever mention a single word about a pulmonary renal syndrome in your
Sir,
diagnosis?
because it was there was a
No, you knew
confirmed
that there was a
biopsy.
pulmonary
Yes,
hemorrhage.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I know
she
that there is a
received
pulmonary.
therapy. She
Yes, sir.
received therapy for that. So
Therapy.
why didn't you even for a second call it as a pulmonary renal syndrome in your
Yes, sir.
diagnosis? You just mentioned
Because yes, sir. If there was no biopsy report or there was no any history of serology report, I would have mentioned as pulmonary renal syndrome, sir. As the biopsy was done and she was started on specific therapies like plasmapheresis, and she received endoxin and cyclophosphamide, I have narrowed down it to specific disease contents.
Yeah, see,
Uh,
pulmonary renal syndrome is a syndromic diagnosis which can be included irrespective of your final diagnosis. There's no, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong in that if you
okay,
include it
sir.
as a part of the
Okay,
diagnosis.
okay, sir.
Now, in your differential diagnosis for RPR, now is this session supposed to involve only Dr. Mahesh? Or anybody else also can give feedbacks? All others also can give
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
their comments.
Yes, sir. Everyone
Anybody
will.
else? Yeah, anybody else wants to detail
They
on the
will put
differential
in the.
diagnosis?
They will put in
Chat
that.
boxes?
Yes, sir.
I can't see anything in the chat. Group chat is empty. So anybody else wants to offer any other differential diagnosis? Okay, we'll discuss it with a little less uh, evidence of therapy. So say if you have seen the patient at the time when she presented with an RPGN-like syndrome, she had a subacute
Yes, sir.
history of being diagnosed with renal failure. She has
So,
proteinuria, and then she has uh, active urinary sediments. So what would
sir,
be your differential diagnosis?
sir, when a 55-year-old female present with an active urinary sediment and rapidly progressing renal failure, with taking age into consideration, I would think about it as an rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, sir, as it is a nephritic picture. And
Okay.
before that, I will also order serological investigations like ANA, ANCA, which include P ANCA, C ANCA, and at the same time I would also look for
No, we're
anti-GBM.
asking, Mahesh, be specific.
Sir,
So,
sir,
RPGN like picture in a 57-year-old female. So, what
sir.
are your differential diagnosis? is the question. We're not asking about investigations. I know you look for
Yeah.
secondary.
One is like Paucimian glomerulonephritis.
Okay, the first thing
One
you'd think is a
this
Paucimian crescent.
Paucimian glomerulonephritis, and
Okay.
other one is anti-GBM disease, Goodpasser disease.
We didn't even talk about
And
pulmonary hemorrhage here.
okay, so then malignancies presenting it as rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis also can be present, sir, because some in the elderly people, lymphoproliferative and
There are some comments.
myeloproliferative.
Yeah, Mahesh, there are some valid comments here. One is somebody is asking why it isn't a lupus. Why is it simply a IgA and with crescents? Why isn't it an infection-related glomerulonephritis? So why didn't you consider any of this? See, this is one more
Infection
common
related,
problem.
yes, sir.
This is one more
Infection related, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Infection related glomerulonephritis. Like I could not get any history of any fever or any, at least
No, when she
she's not
presented, she had
diabetic.
fever, right? When she presented, she had fever, right?
She got fever 100 degrees when she presented, almost at the advanced stage when she came here, sir.
Yeah,
Uh, uh,
I would be with you. He says that travel history is present, so don't be very sure about lack of IRGN. I would be with him in that. See, we have seen patients with IgA or the post-infectious
IgA,
glomerulonephritis, post-infectious, not IgA, post-infectious
uh,
glomerulonephritis, who had a mild lower limb cellulitis or lower limb infection, which settled off by the time they visited to us.
okay,
So
sir.
definitely it is a possibility,
Okay.
a
Possibility,
post-infectious or
yes, sir. As
infection-related
you
glomerulonephritis.
said. Okay, sir.
Another common thing which happens with residents is when they're presenting a history, if they are into a primary glomerular disease, they don't come out of that. Like you're talking about IgA, what are the differential diagnoses? You keep on talking about IgA, post-infectious, MPGN, MGN. And if you're talking about a secondary, you don't go into the other. Likewise, when you're talking about so much about Paucimian crescentic GNA, you didn't even talk about IgA. So always keep in mind about these things. So these, I would put the differential diagnosis as one like what he's saying, a Paucimian, one like what you're saying, Paucimian. Second, IgA with crescents definitely is a possibility. Infection-related glomerulonephritis is a possibility.
Glomerulonephritis.
Can it
Yes.
be a cryoglobulimic nephritis?
Yes, sir. When it comes to differential diagnosis of
Yeah, it
rapidly
has to be
progressive,
definitely.
we
I
definitely
would
we
put
included,
all
sir.
of these
Yes,
IgA,
sir.
IRGN, cryoglobulinemia, Paucimian much before the
Yes,
anti-GBM,
sir.
primarily because of the rarity with which we see anti-GBM,
Okay, sir.
right?
But the yes, sir. But as the history was not suggesting of like the chronic, there was no history of any chronic hepatitis B, hepatitis C,
Okay.
commonly presented. And I mean, if we think about the cryoglobulinemia,
Yeah.
we have to go back to etiology, and then we should think about any infections which can cause elevation of these cryoglobulinic things, or any history suggestive of malignancies which would increase
Exactly,
the
right?
yes,
But remember that cryoglobulinemia is not simply due to HCV and HBV
yes,
only.
yes.
There are lymphomas, there could be other
Lymphoma, yes, sir.
monoclonal
Yes, sir.
gammopathies
Yes, sir.
which could associated with
Yes,
this.
sir. Yes, sir.
And there is no classical history of arthralgia, but if you
Yes,
find this extreme fatigue which you have been telling from the beginning,
yes,
the
sir.
part of
Yes, sir.
renal failure agreed. The
Yes,
extreme
sir.
fatigue which you are talking about is an important hallmark in cryoglobulinemia. You know what is
Okay,
a
sir.
Elsers triad, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Sir,
with
sir.
all this in mind, cryoglobulinemia should be in the list.
Okay, sir.
Cryoglobulinemia and post-infectious are things which are commonly forgotten in differential diagnosis. Luckily for us, somebody from Nadiad has added IRGN.
Okay,
Somebody
sir.
has commented that it can very well be a necrotizing pneumonia triggering IRGN. Yeah, that's a possibility, but lung manifestations were a little late. So
Yes,
there
sir.
are no
Late
skin
man.
rashes, there is no
Yes,
neuropathy.
sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yeah, so those things go against cryoglobulinemia.
Yes, sir.
So, but still, differential diagnosis should include these
Yes.
things when we talk about. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then, as I told, I would put anti-GBM very low. See, once you know the diagnosis, that is a problem. Your mind will not go away from there. So, anti-GBM, a very, very rare disease. What is the incidence of anti-GBM?
Point 1 in 10,000, sir.
One
Very
in
rare.
1 in 10,000.
0.5%, sir.
No,
Incidence.
it is not 1 in 1,000 either.
One
It is one in
one
one.
case per, 0.5 per one case per 1 million, sir.
Yeah,
10 lakh
one
per
in a
lakh.
million. So
Yes, sir.
one
Yes,
one in 1 lakhs,
1 million.
10
Yes, sir.
lakhs.
10 lakhs, sir.
It's a quite
Very,
very, very, very rare disease. Somebody has commented here saying it's Dr. that it is 1 in 1000. No, it is 1 in 10
1 in
lakhs.
10 lakhs, sir. Yes, sir.
Extremely rare disease. If you have seen one
Point.
in your residency, then you have seen good cases. Okay.
But apparently it happened like frequently.
You saw quite a number of cases. You are in a
Yes,
busy
sir.
unit, boss. You are
No, sir. No,
controlled.
sir. They are like abnormal. Like they were diagnosed somewhere else and they came for treatment or something.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Anyway, it's still quite a rare disease. The largest reported
Yes, sir.
series is for 1.6 per million. That is the largest reported series.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay. Somebody has commented that they have seen
Yes, sir.
5
Yes,
cases
sir.
at their
Yes, sir.
institute.
Similar in our institute. 5 cases I have
Yeah,
seen.
5 cases is quite small numbers only, obviously. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But okay, sir.
Yeah. I think we'll. Any other thing? Anybody else wants to add anything else? See, we have relatively narrowed it to an RPGN, so all these things come. It cannot be anything else now that biopsy everything is done, and there's some misinformation regarding the doses, the drugs she has received. She has received endoxan 1 pulse only, as far as I remember. It is not. She cannot receive 2 because we have not given her 15 days. We have not seen her back in 15 days. She was offered
Okay.
further therapy, including plasmapheresis, but they had financial crunch at that time, so they left back. That too, they came here prepared only for a short admission because there was
Okay, sir.
lockdown at that time.
Okay,
So
sir.
some confusion was there.
Hmm.
Anyway, we also gave her endoxan because we knew it is anti-GBM, but we gave her IV endoxan. How is this is actually treated with oral endoxan. We have given her IV because it's difficult to follow her.
Sir,
treatment.
IV is also like good in causing remission.
Yeah, you're right about it, but the evidence is for oral endoxan. There is no
Okay, sir.
doubt about it. But
Okay, sir.
IV, like what you say, there is nothing like it should not be given IV. So
Okay,
we have
sir.
given IV for her, but I would say that the
Okay, sir.
evidence is for oral.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
Anyway, we'll talk about the treatment a little later on in the case. So these differentials. We'll move on to the examination. Anything else?
Examination, she is moderately being poorly nourished, sir. She had pallor, she has edema, there was no icterus, clubbing or lymphadenopathy. Cardiac examination, S1 and S2 was present, and an ejection systolic murmur was present in the left second intercostal space on the left side of sternum. Apex is palpable in fifth intercostal space in mid-clavicular lines. Respiratory system, she had bilateral normal vascular bed cells. Occasionally, fine crackles were present basally, sir. For abdominal examination, it was soft and there was no organomegaly. CNS examination, and at the time when I examined, there was no focal neurological deficit, sir. And she had a good tone and higher mental functions were always normal.
Okay.
She looks little breathless to me at the time. Immediately, when I was taking history, she was on dialysis, sir. I
Okay.
examined her when when she finished her dialysis and she came to the room, like little breathless. Otherwise,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, anyway, as usual, as in nephrology, in these kinds of cases, there will be nothing much in the examination that can contribute to our understanding. But anyway, last time in our class, we have discussed about the systemic examination. We'll limit that now. We'll go on to the investigation. So what all investigations you want, you can ask. Our resident Yogesh there will answer with what
Sir,
investigations.
first I would like to know on presentation what is her complete hemogram, sir. HB, hemoglobin, lymphocytes, and platelet count.
Okay. Yogesh, can you answer that?
Sir, hemoglobin was 7.3,
Okay.
WBC 4,500, platelet 24,000.
74,000, sir. Okay, sir.
No, this is recent, right? On admission is asking.
On admission.
On admission, if I remember right, she had some anemia. Otherwise, there's nothing. Blood counts.
Hemoglobin, what she remember, it was around 6. He
Yes.
told, sir. but
Yeah.
other he could not remember. I would just want to know whether she had any infection, and as we are suspecting some rapidly progressive glomerular nephritis, and which needs landing up in needing doing biopsy, sir. I want to rule out any bleeding things, like whether she had a low platelet count or something like any infection.
No, no,
Because,
no. At the time, our platelets were
mm,
normal. Our
mm,
counts were relatively in the normal range. If I remember, they're around
and
10,000, I think.
and peripheral smear, sir, because we are planning, if in case she turned out to be any either it could be a vasculitis or any glomerular basal membrane antibodies to glomerular basal membrane, we may offer her with immunosuppressive medications. I want to rule out infection, sir. One these cultures, he said that there was no growth. Whether smear was showing any toxic granules or any that kind
Okay.
of picture.
Okay, those things were not there. But anything else you want in
Mm,
CBP when
and
you're looking for an inflammatory syndrome like vasculitis? Anything that you want to see?
yeah, yes, sir, eosinophils and CF, um, ESR also I would want like to know.
Okay. See, there is
CR.
thrombocytosis, which is a common phenomenon in vasculitis that you should.
Okay, sir.
Thrombocytosis is common. You should be noting that. Other than that, there is nothing much to be noted there. Her urine was
ES,
showing 3
urine
plus a 3,
examination,
3 plus protein with
sir.
RBC's full field. We didn't do a 24-hour urine protein because she
Uh,
was quite oliguric, if I remember.
yes, sir. Yes.
And
So, RBC cast and any was there, sir.
yeah, RBC casts were there in the urine examination.
So then I would like to narrow down there to it typically as a glomerulonephritis kind of picture, sir, as it was showing RBC class.
Okay.
And further investigation, as now we are clear that she was having some rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis kind of picture, and I want to rule out autoimmune diseases, sir, like ANA titer and Priyanka, and
ANA, we didn't do a titers, we do by immunofluorescence, it was
yeah,
negative.
okay, negative.
ANCA was negative, and
Okay, sir.
C ANCA and P ANCA were negative.
Negative. Sir,
And
as any anti-GBM titer was sent, or
Yogesh, do
because,
you have that report, anti-GBMs?
Titer report I don't have, sir.
sir,
Okay.
and as she's an elderly patient with rapidly progressing renal failure and severe anemia, I would also want to know about her calcium level, serum albumin, and whether is there have we thought of any myeloma at that point of time, sir.
Okay.
At least, I
LFT,
mean,
Yogesh.
Yes, sir. Sir, albumin was 2.9, globulin was 0.8.
0.8.
8. Serum globulin is only 0.8, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. And serum calcium, which was
Calcium, Yogesh.
alkaline phosphatase in calcium.
If he doesn't have the reports, probably for those now. But as far as I remember, the calcium is on the lower side actually. It is 7.8 or something like that with 2.9
Okay.
albumin. And
Okay.
otherwise, you wanted to ask something. We didn't send any immunofixation electrophoresis or
Okay, sir.
anything for any
I mean,
myeloma
before that,
for the biopsy.
I would not directly send immune fixation electrophoresis, sir. But keeping in mind whether there are any other things suggesting of
Yeah, somebody is asking
sir.
C3 levels. We did C3, C4 levels, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You have those values?
Yes, sir. C3 was 92 and
Yeah.
C4 was 30, not 2.
Okay. Both of them are within the normal ranges.
Yes, sir.
Normal.
Yeah, somebody put one more question here. We'll discuss it a little later. Whether they are asking the post-immune immune complex and anti-GBM is 50, 40, 10% in biopsies. That's not true. Anyway, I'll finish this discussion right away. Yeah, what do you say on this, Mahesh? That the incidence of post-immune versus immune complex versus anti-GBM is 50, 40, 10%.
So I cannot go with that, sir, because it would be more. If we say 10% about anti-GBM, suppose if we are taking 100 patients with RPGN, 10 patients should be anti-GBM, sir, which is not at all possible, which
Yeah.
is very, very rarely.
No. There are two
Yes,
things
sir.
here. One is if you're taking RPGN, these three are not the only diseases.
Yes, sir.
Some
Yes,
other
sir.
diseases also, including primary glomerular with recent transformations.
Yes, sir.
There has been some literature about this percentages which he's talking about, but it is only about tricentric genes by definitions, more than 50%, right? Most of the immune complex diseases, like what is the incidence of say if you take anti-GBM, if you do 100 biopsies, how many of them will have 50% crescents?
70 to 85%.
85%, yes.
Yes, sir.
If you take
70 to
quasi-immune,
85%.
how many of them will have crescentic GN?
30 to 40%.
Yeah, if you take immune complex, how many of them will have
crescents is only 5 to 10%.
Yeah, 5 to 10% only. So not more than that. So this ratio which has been defined of quasi-immune versus immune complex versus anti-GBM is only for classical crescentric GN.
Okay, sir.
More than 50% crescents. So
Okay, sir.
these are not for RPGN as a whole.
Okay, sir.
Right?
Okay,
so,
sir.
The disease is much higher. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay. Go on with any other investigations that you want.
Yeah, yes, sir. Now, if the complements are normal, Priyanka, Siyanka are negative, and anti-GBM
I will ask you a question here. I'll ask you a question here. This is for everybody. You can put your replies on group chat. That seems to be okay. So, what is the incidence of negative ANCA in a patient with post-immune crescentic gene, post-immune GN?
10% are approximately.
Yeah, 10% approximately.
10%.
Somebody says 10 to 30%, 15%. Yeah,
10%.
10%. But if you do ANCA by both methods,
yes, sir. ELISA as well as IF.
Exactly.
Indirect
ELISA as well as immunofluorescence, then the chances of it becoming negative are much less.
Much less.
Only around 5 to 10%.
10%. Yes, sir.
So what about the anti-GBM disease?
Sir, anti-GBM almost 85% they may get positive, sir, serology, but sometimes they are the test based upon the test, sir. If they do the test by immobilization of antigen by using anti-GBM sera, 85% may become positive, sir. But there are like false positive things in this test, sir, because it is not specific to alpha 3 type 4 domain, sir, because the antibody may be for all the antigens. So, in specific, if we do biopsy and immunohistochemistry, the chance of getting narrowing the diagnosis to good positive disease will be significant, sir.
Okay, so one problem is the IgA and IgG4 antibodies, which may be which may
10% of the patients may be present with IgA and IgM also, sir. But without IgG and only IgA is very rarely present. As a
okay. So that's about the testing. So there, like what you're saying, there are many methods to test it, including the testing on the normal kidney tissues using indirect immunofluorescence, Western blots. But practically, most of the tests is simply done by either immunofluorescence or an enzyme immunase or a ELISA technique only, where you get also the titers. Now,
and she presented with gross volume overload state, sir, and advanced renal failure. Anyway, though in order to confirm the diagnosis, we need a biopsy. As the patient was treated, we may need to first make her stable by doing hemodialysis. And one thing is like whether at the time of presentation, her hemoglobin was 6. What her husband was told, sir. And only one thing I have a doubt is, in order to do renal biopsy to be on safe side, at least to improve her hemoglobin, whether there was any blood transfusion, why it was not offered. One question.
Blood transfusion. Yogesh, was she transfused?
Before biopsy.
Yogesh?
Initially, we didn't transfuse her.
Did we transfuse her?
We transfused her after plasmapheresis. On the last day, we gave
No. Before the biopsy, the first
Biopsy.
admission. Do you remember anything?
We didn't transfuse her.
Yeah, but our hemoglobin was a little higher than what was 6 grams, if I remember right. Maybe 7, 8. I don't remember.
8.3, 8.4 at that time.
8.3.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, see, we are not very pro transfusions. I think that should
Okay.
not
Yes,
be
sir.
a
Okay.
gross error there.
If 8 is,
Anyway.
I mean, 8 is like no problem.
Yeah.
And 6 was like little bit on lower side. That's why
Yeah.
I was little bit on.
Anyway, that's not. I mean, let us limit our discussion to what is
And
theoretical
biopsy,
and for your
yes, sir.
advantage. Yeah. Yeah.
And she underwent biopsy, sir. And keeping in mind biopsy report only, our treatment was there was a major change in the treatment protocol. So I would like to know what is the biopsy
Yeah,
report.
Yogesh, please go ahead and read the biopsy.
On microscopic examination, the CS section study showed a core of renal cortex up to 13 glomeruli, and the viable glomeruli were engaged and showed crescents, which are segmental cellular in 9 glomeruli, two having fibrocellular and fibrous in 1 glomeruli. There is no increase in cellularity of basement membrane changes. Few of the glomeruli tufts show presence of fibrin with karyoretic debris suspicious of necrosis. Tubular atrophy is involving in 40% of cortex. Few tubules had hyaline and granular cast. Interstitium was widened and fibrosed around the atrophic tubules with moderately dense infiltrate of lymphocytes and plasma cells. Then on immunofluorescence, the study showed 10 glomeruli. All of them had crescents with peripheral linear continuous deposits of IgG with mesangial deposits of IgA.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay. So I put in the message about grossly what he has talked about. This is what I could infer. I'm not with Yogesh right now, so this is what I could infer. If there is any correction, he can add. So one here from one comment immediately came is that there are different ages of crescents.
Yes,
so
sir.
it favors ANCA associated vasculitis.
Yes, sir. In anti-GBM, the crescents will be of the same age,
Okay.
but I feel like she might have developed the disease all the way from March, and she presented almost 1.5 months later. So,
okay. Do you think that because she if it's a single disease, but because she presented from March, she does not have varying age of presence?
Chronicities might sometimes change, with the disease. She might.
Yeah. See, the point here is yeah, there's one valid points, 1 or 2 here. The point here is, say, anti-GBM is a one-shot disease. That means it comes and goes.
It comes and goes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if the disease has started in March, that's why we are also not really convinced with ANCA being negative. If the disease started in March and it as an anti-GBM disease alone, it could have destroyed the kidney by the end of April or maybe early May, and that would have been the end of the story. She had a subacute course. So that is like what has been said, subacute course is not favoring an anti-GBM at all. So we were strongly of the opinion that she is likely to have a vasculitis in her biopsy, but this has come out. See, ANCA, they were talking about some finances and all. We couldn't send by ELISA. We have done that's our mistake. Maybe we should do by ELISA also. As you said, 90% positivity by ELISA, 90% by immunofluorescence, and 95% if both of them are used. So we should have probably used both methods.
ELISA as well.
Then we would have known definitely.
Sir, but if there is biopsy also will show some features like Paucinian deposits and crescents with the linear deposits.
Is no there's Paucinian there's no immunoglobulin deposits. Linear deposits are there. Now the other question which has been rightly pointed out by somebody is that anti-GBM ones are more destructive. If you look at it, the biopsy has significant necrotic glomeruli.
Yes, sir. Yes,
necrotic glomeruli is usually a feature of anti-GBM. So it's a double disease, definitely. Histopathologically, it's a double disease. But serology, as of now, we only have evidence of anti-GBM. That's where I would stop about the biopsy. Now we have come to the discussion on biopsy.
Sir, small doubt, sir.
Yeah.
If in our center, we saw almost 5 cases of anti-GBM, sir. Almost all the patients had similar kind of picture, sir. Like they did not, in all the 5 patients, we did not suspect anti-GBM was the cause. We have suspected vasculitis or keeping all the patients were around 50, above 50 years of age. But apparently it was like they did not all of a sudden they did not develop a complete shutdown of the kidney. It was like subacute course in every patient. Like why it could be the reasons are like
That is very difficult to explain, but offhand I remember 4 or 5 patients of mine. 2 of them had a very acute presentation, absolutely only crescentic, only cellular crescents, and
okay, sir.
both of them were children actually. One was
Okay,
only
sir.
14 years old, and he had his biopsy was done when his creatinine was only 1.5.
Okay, sir.
Presented with a pulmonary hemorrhage and this renal dysfunction, and he responded very dramatically to treatment, including plasmapheresis, and his the renal function became normal.
Okay, sir.
As you know, in this, what are the major prognostic factors for anti-GBM disease? Only things which decide how a disease will progress.
One is renal function at the time of presentation, sir.
Exactly.
And renal function, age of the patient, and prior comorbids.
No age. See, there are 2 factors which decide whether the patient will come out or not. 100%
and
crescents.
lung,
No, 100% crescents. Yeah,
crescents.
presence of crescents. If crescents are present in all the glomeruli, the likelihood, there's one study where they talked about when 100% crescents are there, 95% that the patient will remain dialysis dependent. The renal recovery is not there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these 2
sir,
are the major.
Whether it is the crescent or the type of crescent, sir, because as you said, the treatment also, if there are good amount of cellular crescents, they will respond to
irrespective
treatment.
of whether they are cellular or fibrocellular. If there are 100% crescents, that's the end of the story. The kidneys are unlikely to recover.
Okay.
Now, in the biopsy, anything else that we should discuss about? I mean, last time I think we discussed
changes in because whether to offer immunosuppressive medications for this group of patients, the renal biopsy is the thing which guides us. Instead of apart from serum creatinine, the type of crescents, the chronicity.
We'll go to the treatment in a while. That would be the last part.
Whether that was there in biopsy, because we are seeing in biopsy now, chronicity,
yeah, we'll go to that in a minute. Before that, where does anti-GBM find a place in Chapel Hill classification?
Chapel Hill did not mention in anti-GBM, sir. They divided small vessel vasculitis into ANCA positive and ANCA negative, and in immune ANCA negative. In ANCA negative, like they divided it as immune complex mediated, and the lupus.
No. See, this is I knew that this is what the original impression will be. See, the large medium, as everybody knows, small vessel vasculitis is divided into ANCA associated and
ANCA negative.
complex.
Then it was divided into like SLE, IgA predominant, cryoglobulinic, and other immune complex vasculitis in Chapel Hill classification, sir.
Yeah.
But
wait. See, in immune small vessel vasculitis is ANCA associated and immune complex. In immune complex, there is anti-GBM, cryoglobulinemia, and IgA with hypocomplementary.
Hypocomplementary vascular Behçet's and all.
Yeah. So the anti-GBM finds a place in Chapel Hill classification in the small vessel immune complex group.
Okay.
Sir,
the
lupus that you're talking about comes separately as part of vasculitis with systemic disease. There, lupus, rheumatoid, and sarcoidosis come.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I want you to know that anti-GBM is in immune complex vasculitis.
Sir, and if they talk particularly about only Chapel Hill classification, they're like they meant they separated lupus and rheumatoid and other immune complex separately, sir. So newer classifications are included immune complex where it contains like SLE, anti-GBM, IgA, all in immune complex. Sir, so we should tell it like separately or the same?
I think 2012 Chapel Hill talks about immune complex as anti-GBM, and vasculitis with systemic disease is lupus, rheumatoid, and separately. You can
Okay,
recheck that, but as far as I remember, it is like that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's about another common mistakes again come in biopsy, but unfortunately in our case the biopsy doesn't have any deposits for us to really discuss about the PAS, Jones, and Masson's stains. So when we discuss that, we can include. Somebody has commented that lupus is included in immune complex. Okay, maybe I'm
Yes, sir.
not sure, but 2012 is this as far as I remember.
Yes,
Okay, so let's go on to the treatment. Before we go on, Sujit sir, anything else to add in this? Anything that we are missing? We didn't discuss before we end with treatment and transplant.
Go ahead with treatment, sir.
Sujit sir, we can't hear you loud.
Treatment. We can go ahead with everything done.
Yeah. Okay. So now with the biopsy in hand, so how do you treat this disease? Now we are not talking about the renal disease. We'll come to that. Like what you said, the presenting creatinine, crescents, and the chronicity decide on the level of aggression you should go about when treating
Yes,
this
sir.
disease.
Yes.
But when it comes to the pulmonary disease with the active pulmonary hemorrhage,
Yes, sir. When there is active pulmonary disease, the rapidity by which we remove the anti-GBM antibodies in the blood circulation, the lung manifestations improve well, sir. Not like a renal problem, which would not improve once there is much amount of more crescents or chronicity. So I would like to offer immunosuppressive medications along with plasmapheresis in this patient particularly, sir, because she presented with hemoptysis and pulmonary manifestations.
hemorrhage. Okay.
MS,
So how do you do a plasmapheresis? In that, again, you have told in your history that we have done 4 sessions of plasmapheresis. As far as I remember, she received 5 sessions of plasmapheresis in 7 days.
Yes, sir. If it is like, yes, sir, she 5 sessions, 4 sessions in 7 days, 5 sessions in 8 days. That's what he told her. But
now,
if it
how is the actual treatment recommended? How
actual treatment recommended is daily we have to do plasmapheresis, sir.
Okay.
Till she got subsided from hemoptysis and pulmonary manifestations. In general,
Okay.
it takes 14 days to 21, 2 weeks to 21 days, sir. Along with the plasmapheresis, we should also give immunosuppressive medications to suppress the antibody production also, sir, which would be either in the form of methylprednisolone or cyclophosphamide. That's what But by the time I took history, she underwent 5 sessions only, sir, in 8 days.
Okay.
And,
so 5 sessions. What is the volume of plasma that is recommended in this? It has to
sir,
be
new KDIGO
raised.
guidelines says 40 to 50 ml per kg, sir.
Okay.
But what in general we do is 1 volume of plasma we remove, sir. When we are doing in our center, we go based upon hematocrit and values and based on it,
Okay.
sir.
Approximately 4 liters per session is what is recommended. We have done every time 3.7 liters. Only the last session she didn't tolerate well. We could remove only I think 2.5 liters or so. And
sir,
so
and
what is it?
one more. Okay, if it is a question or like, what was the replacement fluid that was offered for this patient?
What is the replacement fluid that should be offered?
Fresh frozen plasma would be better because she is already in hemorrhage, and if we give only saline or ringer lactate with albumin, it would exacerbate the bleeding manifestations.
Yeah.
So in
so
this, even
pulmonary
after
hemorrhage, recent renal biopsy are the ones
Yes,
where
sir. Yes,
you
sir.
would prefer
FFP.
to replace plasma to prevent a coagulopathy.
Yes,
So
sir.
ultimately, at the end of the 5th session, she had yes, somebody has written
Yes.
here that albumin and later on FFP. Yeah, that is what is recommended. But with an active pulmonary hemorrhage, it's difficult to
Hemorrhage,
take
we
a chance
cannot.
on that.
Yes, sir.
We had replaced with plasma in every session. And
Sir,
later on in the
and-
last session, she had some mild
Sir,
coagulopathy and thrombocytopenia. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead,
sir.
Mahesh.
Sir, one doubt, sir. She had an albumin of around 2.1, sir.
Yeah.
So, and what the thing is, whether it could be a contributory thing or I'm not clear. But she developed some seizure kind of thing on the 5th day, sir, on June 7th.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be continuous plasmapheresis, which could be leading to decreased serum calcium levels and may precipitate any seizure
No,
activity.
it's not a tetany kind of seizure that she had. She had a complex partial
Complex
seizure.
partial.
She was,
One hand, she was left hand. She said that. He
yeah,
said.
and actually we were looking for metabolic cause like hyponatremia and other things.
Yes, sir.
But ultimately, when we gave Levipil, she settled down very fast.
Yes, sir.
We believe, see, there has been reported incidence of neurological side effects of rituximab. We
Yes,
have given
sir.
rituximab.
Yes, sir. The
So
day
it
after
may be
rituximab,
related to rituximab, but we really are not sure. She settled too rapidly for us to
yes, sir. Yeah,
need
to
any
think
further
about
evaluation.
rituximab as could be.
Rituximab is what we suspected as the cause of her problems. Now, when it comes to treatment, like what you said, the previous standard understanding is 100% crescents or creatinine more than 5.7, which is 500. Yeah, is our dialysis dependency is you need not
do plasma, sir. But she
not
had
plasma,
lung
not plasma, is against aggressive therapy with respect
aggressive
to kidney.
therapy, sir. Yes, sir.
Even even an immunosuppression, because the kidneys are unlikely to recover. But like what you're saying nowadays, it's like it's a disease on which they're generating large amount of evidence is difficult. So people have tried even with 100% crescents, and they have seen that the kidneys can recover in some of these patients. So that would be controversial.
Sir, but the presence of pulmonary manifestation is an indication for aggressive
Yeah. There is no doubt about it. Pulmonary manifestations, you need to treat it with plasmapheresis.
Yes. Okay.
They're talking about the kidney. See, now her pulmonary hemorrhage has stopped.
Stop.
So what should
Now,
we do about her
now we would like to,
now?
sir, as per protocol, we have to see the anti-GBM titers after last session of plasma pheresis, sir, to see whether the titers are coming down. That is for one reason, whether to offer plasma. In case if the patient becomes dialysis dependent and she knocks off her kidney, and if we are planning transplant in early, that is also an indication to be an aggressive as far as any treatment which is being considered as renal. If we think about kidney and if we offer aggressive treatment.
Okay, then we'll not go into the non-specific things for which there are no answers. The other questions would be like anything new about treatment of anti-GBM disease.
Newly immune-specific Ig absorption mechanisms also decreases that rapidly this anti-GBM antibodies that would offer benefit to the patient, because instead of being selective absorption of Ig.
Oh, you're talking about absorption columns.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same like plasmapheresis, instead of doing plasmapheresis, absorption
selection.
Okay.
And one more thing is like IDES, sir. Imlifidase is also considered in new KDIGO guidelines, sir, which should IgG and
IgG degrading enzyme.
Yes, sir. But not yes, sir. So derived from step. We would give in post.
Anywhere else you heard about this?
Yes, sir. Post transplant.
Anywhere else you heard about this IDES?
Post-transplant antibody-mediated rejection.
Imlifidase, somebody has written.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Imlifidase is like a brand drug name, sir.
Antibody desensitization.
Rapid desensitization. It is being practiced itself, because suppose if we get a kidney, cadaver kidney, or if you want to decrease the antibody anti titers, imlifidase is also an option, sir. because it depletes within a period of 1 week rapidly. Hello? Hello? Hello, Aniket?
Mahesh, what happened?
Huh?
Oh,
Am I
sir.
audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible, sir.
Sir?
1 minute. Okay, sir got disconnected. We'll wait for some.
Sir, ఏమైంది సార్ కనెక్షన్ మళ్ళీ లాగిన్ అవ్వండి సార్.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Mahesh, I got disconnected. Sorry for that. Yeah, so finally we are discussing about the variants of anti-GBM disease. Anything else that you can, any atypical variant that you have seen in your 5 cases?
No, sir. Like the only thing is like as per book, and you said it will be a very drastic presentation. But the thing is like patients had present. There was a subacute course for all the patients, sir. Like over a period of 1 month or something, and only one patient got away from. I mean, not dialysis dependent, sir. Out of 5, 4 are dialysis dependent.
Somebody has written atypical anti-GBM with no antibodies. Somebody has written IgM or IgGM.
IgS, sir. That is presentation.
One of my anti-GBM was not detected. Yeah, anti-GBM not detecting is not atypical. We have seen one variant of which has been described by in about 20 case series by reported of atypical anti-GBM, which is that there is no dramatic disease. The patient presented with an creatinine of 1.4 and proteinuria. Biopsy showed anti-GBM. But by the time steroids were started, the patient had already gone into remission. He required only actually before we really gave her any strong immunosuppression, out of fear we have given her 60 milligram prednisolone, but she never required really any immunosuppression. Biopsy was typical anti-GBM, no crescents, and mild endocapillary proliferation, and then she had gone into complete remission. Anti-GBM antibodies were remaining positive. So that is one thing which we have seen. As I have told, there is something.
Sir, all the patients you have seen those. What the patients what we have seen are elderly patients, and they have presented in the similar patterns. Progressive rise in creatinine, hematuria, active urinary sediment.
Yeah, most of them would have the association between ANCA-associated vasculitis and anti-GBM is because of that epitope or the phenomenon of epitope exposure. So this vasculitis can cause a limited exposure of the glomerular basement membrane epitope of that call for A3 leading to anti-GBM disease, which can precipitate later on in this patients. Anything else, sir? Sujit, sir?
Sir, what was the... Sorry, sir, to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, what was the presentation in that patient where you treated 100% crescents improved? Because you said like their creatinine was only 1.4 or something like.
No, pulmonary hemorrhage. Pulmonary hemorrage was there. Patient required plasmapheresis for the pulmonary hemorrage. 14-year-old boy. He did very well after that.
Okay, sir. Renal wise, he was not
dramatic. His creatinine was only 1.4.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Anything else that we need to discuss? So there are a few questions here. What time to continue plasma exchange? What parameters on which we decide to stop plasma exchange? Can you answer that, Mahesh?
Sir, one thing till if we see particularly in relation to lung manifestations. As long as the hemorrhage disappears or pulmonary manifestation subsides, we have to continue plasmapheresis, sir. It could be 2 weeks or 3 weeks of daily plasma exchange. But if the pulmonary hemorrhage
3 weeks,
subsides,
I don't remember reading 3 weeks anywhere. 7 to 14 sessions are
new
the
new
usual
new
things which
new
are required.
KDIGO, they new KDIGO guidelines, no, they didn't mention about that 2 weeks or 3 weeks, sir. But in the discussion part, they have mentioned it may take 2 weeks or 3 weeks, sir. But if we say see guidelines per se, either 14 days or till pulmonary hemorrhage subsides. But
Yeah.
most of
The
the
other
times
thing
they
which
have
can guide you in taking the decision is the
titers,
antibodies.
sir.
You can check
Titers, sir. Titers.
titers of the
And
antibodies.
titers. And one more newer like in KDIGO, what they have mentioned is if the patient is not for cyclophosphamide initially and not considered rituximab, MMF is also an alternate option
Alternate
for
option.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And
Right about that.
and one more thing, if we do plasmapheresis and everything, and still after 14 days of plasmapheresis, and if pulmonary manifestations subside, and if subsides but titers are being higher, in general, anti-GBM and disease doesn't require what do you say, maintenance therapy, sir. But in this group of patients, if anti-GBM titers remains elevated, they also may be considered for MMF therapy. That's what mentioned in new guidelines.
Okay. So we actually like what you're telling. We look at the anti-GBM antibodies, clinical response, and patients who continue to have problems of pulmonary hemorrhage despite say 7 to 10 sessions, they can be considered for this rituximab, which is see there is a very surprise. What about the transplant in these patients? What do you do when they are being considered for transplant?
So they should be negative for anti-GBM titers till 6 months. Then only we can consider for transplant if it is an anti-GBM. And
Yeah.
always we should check for
See,
the clinical course for this patient. Also, there is some thinking about vasculitis also, sir. So,
yeah.
is there any possibility that we would repeat the titers of ANCA on a later date and see whether we are missing any vasculitis element?
Yeah,
Because
exactly. We need to check for
mm,
ANCA positivity continuously, but
yes,
they
sir.
like what has been somebody has commented already. It is 6 months after the antibodies disappear. That means the antibodies
Yes,
should be
sir.
persistently negative for 6
Negative
months,
6
and the
months. Yes,
patient
sir.
can be considered
For transplant.
for transplantation.
Yes,
Now
sir.
here, see, if you look at the discussion throughout, there is so much insistence on anti-GBM antibodies, starting
sir.
from diagnosis to therapy to
Therapy to
decision on the transplantation. Whereas
sir.
if you look at traditionally treatment options for autoimmune diseases, wherever the antibodies are playing a major role, rituximab should be a strong drug which should be top in the list. But
Okay, sir.
unfortunately for
Anti-GBM.
this anti-GBM disease, the evidence for rituximab is very low. Whereas conversely, if you look at vasculitis, you
Very
don't
good
really
data.
need there is very good data like what you're saying for rituximab, but when you look at the antibodies are not really important when you're planning for a transplantation. You look for the clinical response, you look
Clinical,
for
yes, sir.
12
Yes,
months
sir.
after remission, but
Yes,
ANCA,
sir.
it's controversial, agreed, but still it's not very important. So really the theory part of it and the therapy part of it are not correlating if you look at these two areas of our thoughts when it comes to treatment of these patients.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Sujit sir, anything else to add?
Sir, one of my colleague was asking whether we should treat it is like an anti-GBM, a double positive in this group of patients.
Yeah, so you're really right. Now I really don't know how to go about in her. Now I believe that her kidney is gone. So she's dialysis dependent for some time now, and like what has been said, creatinine is 4.5 in March. Whether she'll have a vasculitic flare later on, I'm not very sure. But now I've given her so much immunosuppression that I'm not going to be very aggressive now. Rituximab, endoxan 500 mg, and she also received Solumetrol of 5 grams almost. Yeah, with biopsy showing
the
intermittent
same
chronic
like
changes.
in KDIGO guidelines, it was mentioned that if we have a doubt of double positive disease, and if the condition is like in the similar patient, where the ANCA titers are negative and anti-GBM is positive, still we strongly suspect vasculitis in this case. They mentioned it is like, as we know, we divide the vasculitis treatment into induction phase and maintenance phase. No, sir?
Correct.
They mentioned it like treat induction phase like as an anti-GBM and maintenance phase like a vasculitic phase. Like a low dose of immunosuppression should be continued to keep whether the disease in remission or
Yeah,
so
see,
should we consider
ultimately,
the similarly
no,
in this
ultimately, what are you planning to achieve by giving a immunosuppression in her? In her case, if the pulmonary hemorrhage is not recurring, I will not be worried about the kidneys. See, the
Okay,
only
sir.
thing I'll be worried about is the pulmonary hemorrhage.
Okay,
And
sir.
probably, I mean, when the kidney dies out completely, the autoimmune diseases also die out. Other than actually,
Yes, sir.
anti-GBM is unique in that pure anti-GBM,
Uh,
even after the kidney dies out, the disease can flare. Otherwise,
anti-GBM, sir.
yes, it can flare. A second flare. See, it's a rare disease to flare, but when it flares, it can have a pulmonary hemorrhage.
Okay, sir.
So I would not be very aggressive in this patient when it comes to immunosuppression.
Okay, sir.
Anything else that we missed? Anybody else wants to comment or add anything else to the plan that we have discussed? Or
Post-transplant reoccurrence, sir. And we have not seen any like Alport syndrome after transplantation presenting like anti-GBM. But in literature, if we see, they may present in some patients. So how would we like
yeah,
treat these patients, sir? And one more doubt is the traditional immunosuppression that what we are giving in all the transplant patients includes triple immunosuppression like CMI, MMF, and steroid. And if these patients develop post-transplant anti-GBM, the treatment when we are what we have to consider if it is typically like anti-GBM, we have to give cyclophosphamide. So how we will treat those patients? Or we don't
no.
have
The
any
sheet anchor of treatment of anti-GBM disease is plasmapheresis,
okay,
removal
sir.
of the antibodies.
Antibodies.
What happens in post-transplant scenarios when call for A5 is a target antigen?
Yes, sir.
Really very sure about that. But endoxan and all are only add-on drugs, but they're not the primary
Okay, sir.
efforts. Or
We have to
probably
remove
rituximab has to
antibodies.
be. See, it's the same like in lupus in post-transplant recurrence. The
Okay, sir.
disease recurs, you have to consider an alternate thing. Like in lupus, you may consider a cyclophosphamide. In this case, you may have to consider a rituximab kind of drug, which reduces the antibodies. But
Okay, sir.
yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, sir.
So is this a final comment?
Almost everything done.
Yeah. Should we stop or anything else?
Sir, sir, your experience in selective immunoabsorption? Sir? IDES, okay. Anyway, we are
No experience in. We didn't use anti-A, anti-B columns also. I think on Hyderabad only Century Hospital is doing anti-A, anti-B columns. Otherwise, we don't have any experience with columns as
and
therapy.
yeah, is there none of the patients we have monitored anti-GBM titers, sir? We go ahead with only based upon pulmonary manifestations. Is there any your experience in frequent monitoring of anti-GBM
The
titers,
problem
sir?
remains the same thing. It is about the cost. Our patient have finally given the anti-GBM titers today after
Okay, sir.
getting discharged. So
Okay, sir.
we are yet to see the reports.
Okay, sir.
Somebody has a question about if anti-GBM recurs, treat like primary anti-GBM disease. How common is relapse in anti-GBM?
Very
Relapse,
rarely.
relapse is very rare. It's a one-shot
Very
disease which does not
rare.
usually relapse. Yeah. Okay.
Avoiding triggers for pulmonary hemorrhage is a predominant thing because only relapse mostly they will present with lung manifestations. What the data
Exactly.
says,
So it's about smoking,
lung,
exposure to
smoking,
hydrocarbons,
hydrocarbons, infections,
infections.
pulmonary fluid overload, all the things to be avoided.
Yeah, but reasonable evidence for Septran in vasculitis, but anti-GBM, I don't think so.
Yes. But if we have given anyway, like these rituximab and many
Yeah,
plasmapheresis,
immunosuppression,
we
then
would
we'll keep
already
them
we
also.
would have given
Yeah.
Septran and antifungal Septran prophylaxis.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll stop it here.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, sir, and thank you so much, sir, and thank you everyone for joining. I will end the meeting.